Welcome back to another SuperCoach video with me, JD. The team at Herald Sun and Virtual Sports have dropped a huge update on us for the release of SuperCoach to the public in 2022, with the highlight being the rule changes that have occurred. So let's go through them. We're going to break them down one by one. There's, I think, a good mix of advancing the game, but then also quality of life changes. So we'll go through those as well as, the impact or effect I think they'll have on the game and some things I have to take into consideration, but that thinking will evolve as the preseason goes on. So let's break down the big overall changes for, I guess, the main SuperCoach game. Firstly, we're going to be given an additional 5 trades. We were already at 33 last year with the additional ones they got given. So previously from 30, it's gone up to 35. I think a lot of people are worried that this pushes the game towards like an AFL fantasy style, and I don't think that's the case. So if I bring up this sheet here, so in this sheet, what I've done is look at what is the final squad value. And by the way, I'm just going to give a shout out to Carl Meany, who showed me some of these calcs after one of my previous YouTube videos. It's to figure out like the value of a trade is what we're doing here. So you look at the final value of a squad, the value generated or that's required. So you start with a team value of 10 million. If you want to get to 13.5 million, you need to generate 3.5 million in team value. And then the number of trades that you've used to get there, and then how many are left for kind of sideways, injury, or in the current climate, COVID trades. So previously, I guess old world, the thinking was this one here on the right. So you needed to get about $3.5 million in team value. You had 30 trades to do it. You'd kind of reserve about 6 for those sideways or injury trades, and then use 24 to upgrade your team to full premium. And that's where you kind of got this value of a trade, roughly, needing to be about 150K per trade. And I think what really happened, or what's broken, is that midfielders, and it's really in all lines, but particularly midfielders and rucks, were scoring substantially higher than what they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. And this is, I think, a combination of both changes made to the AFL to make that high possession mid, much more common. Like those records are continually being broken at the moment. And in addition, we also saw changes to ruck rules, so introducing hit out to advantages, which saw a large increase in ruck scoring as well. And so the combination of these two things has meant that the final squad values, or the amount of value you need to generate across the year, has increased substantially. So last year we saw SuperCoach Mama win with a team value of about 14 million. And I think Baps in third had a team value of like 14.3 million. And so really, instead of looking at this world where you need to generate 3.5 mil, we need to find another way to generate another 500 to 750K. And this could even go up in the future. And the reality is that kind of just wasn't possible on the old system if you wanted to retain the value of a trade being 150K. You can see on the right-hand side here where I've got it in red. As it currently stands, if you're gunning for a team of 14.25 mil in value and you only had 30 trades and you still needed to keep 6 for sideways, injuries, etc., then the value of a trade would have to go up to 177K. Or roughly, round up to, say, 180K. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if we were flush with rookies that would consistently generate this amount of money, but that just simply hasn't been the case. So I think in order to kind of keep the value of a trade around that 150K mark, which is what's highlighted in green, then the changes of going up to about 35 trades does feel right. It gives you enough trades to keep the value of a trade at around 150K. And because we're going to need to do more 2-down 1-ups for our midfielders. It's just kind of how the game's evolved. But it still leaves you about that 6-7 trades for those sideways, that injury, that COVID buffer. So I think this is actually a really good change. My initial reaction as someone that has played SuperCoach for a while now and is a bit of a diehard, was that this would be destructive to the game. But I think it's actually the opposite. I think it kind of keeps it how it was, which is good. I mean, we saw with 33 trades last year that many people still didn't finish teams completely, let alone those being full premium teams. So I still think it gives you the same scope in a limited trade format to outperform others the same way it has before, but it retains kind of the original values that SuperCoach was using. So secondly, they've introduced trade boosts. So this was an idea I saw like Jords promote quite heavily. And by the way, like, well done to the Herald Sun team for listening to the community, because a lot of these updates are stuff that I've either seen other content creators promote or suggest, or has been built as kind of like a fan edition by a member of the community, and they've taken inspiration from those things. So well done to them. So the trade boosts are effectively at any point in the year, you can decide to do an extra trade that week. So instead of doing 2 trades, you could do 3, or instead of doing 3 trades, you could do 4, and you've got 5 opportunities to use them throughout the year, although you don't have to. And I think the idea here being that you can use these when you have like that extra injury, maybe you have got a COVID problem, whatever it may be. I think those that are competing heavily for overall, this is going to be used to upgrade your team faster and get to premium status faster. So we'll probably burn through trades faster than what we did before, just to get that edge on the overall competition. But I think there's interesting use cases for league as well. So being able to hold trades through to your finals, and then being able to swap like large amounts of your lineups with sideways trades would be like pretty interesting use as well. The third one, which is a really big one as well, is the introduction of DPB swapping mid-season. So this is the ability for players to gain a additional position if they've spent more than 35% of center bounces in that position. An example of this last year was Josh Kelly, unfortunately for me, who started the year playing half forward a lot, and then he was given a mid forward designation and could be picked up as a forward in fantasy formats. From everything we've seen so far, they are going to follow the same formula. So 35% in a different position will make them eligible for that position. And those updates will happen prior to rounds 6, 12, and 18. So at the end of rounds 5, 11, and 17. If I can add in 6s, which is apparently difficult for me at this time of day. So yeah, this is like a pretty big change, and the implications for starting teams, I think the biggest one, at least off the bat, is going to be when it comes to forwards. Because in all likelihood, we could get, much like we got Josh Kelly last year, we could get players like Fife or Dangerfield or whatever get forward eligibility throughout the year. And that means that starting forwards that could be a top 6 or would be a fringe top 6 becomes a lot less attractive. So sticking to those that you know will be top 6 in that line seems to be the stronger play, and then picking or filling up the rest of your spots with those that gain forward eligibility, such as a Fife, Danger, or even like a ruck, like it could be a Gorn or a Marshall or something throughout the year. That seems like it's going to be the popular strategy. So not going too heavy on the forward line is what this suggests to me. I don't think it has as big of an impact on defense or midfield. I mean, maybe defense with Pendlebury going a halfback, he could pick up defender eligibility, average about 100, could be relevant. But yeah, like this is really interesting. And I think it will make it more dynamic throughout the year. And how we navigate that's going to be pretty tricky. I think it's also going to have some nice implications for rookies. Horn Francis is a good example this year, who is currently a mid only, but by round 6 may have that forward eligibility if the split between forward and mid time that they're talking about comes true. The only other thing I'll say is, because it is a commonly asked question, is if a player already has DPP status, that can't be changed because it would break teams on the back end, I presume. So if you have a player that is a mid forward, but they play the whole year in defense, they're still going to retain mid forward status throughout the year. So you can only add on eligibility. You can't remove it. And then finally, edit trades after lockout. This is something that could be done previously if you'd only done one trade, but it wasn't very well known, and it was definitely like a hidden feature for those that played the game way too much. So I think this is handy for more casual fans that want to reverse trades during the lockout period. I definitely see it as a quality of life change. For those that have been playing for a while, this is probably not a big deal because you're used to, holding your trades until you absolutely need to anyway. But I think it's a nice addition that they've made. So going into leagues, they've changed the minimum and maximum league size. So you can now have a 6-man league and you can go all the way up to a 20-man league. I think this is one of the ones I'm less excited about. So I think the up to 20-man leagues is obviously quite cool, especially if you're playing like cash leagues or leagues with your friends. That's quite a cool experience. But for those that are playing for overall spots on the ladder, the 6-man leagues is a little bit annoying because if you want to be competitive and have the top league, it's going to be with the smaller teams of 6 people. You just have less chance of having a bad player dragging you down. So you're going to see them dominate the top of the league's leaderboard, which is I like competing on all things when it comes to Supercoach, so I inevitably am going to end up probably in some of these 6-man leagues, but it loses the fun when you're not playing in those bigger, like 12, 16, 18-man leagues, whatever it may be, where you actually get to play everyone, once throughout the course of the season. And like it feels like each of the matchups means a little bit more. In a 6-man league, I don't think the head-to-heads you're really going to be paying too much attention to. It's just how your overall league is. I guess like at the same time there isn't prizes for league overall, which is a little bit disappointing, but neither here nor there. So like maybe me try harding isn't the biggest concern in the world, but yeah, I think that's the only downside of that update. So being able to create and join leagues through the season is pretty nice. I wonder if that means you can leave them as well. We've definitely had situations in the past where we've had someone, bounce halfway through the year when in a league, either because they were over Supercoach or they lost their password or whatever it may be. So being able to remove them and add someone new in, that seems like a nice quality of life change. Being able to change the finals options to top 5, 6, or 8. And like, oh, by the way, this is the other really funny man about like a 6-man league, that you could have top 5 or top 6 for finals. So what, if one person gets dropped out or none of you drop out, it just feels like the stakes of throughout the year don't matter as much. It's then just about finals, which I don't really like. But yeah, that's nice that you can kind of adjust how many are playing in the finals based on your league size. It feels like there would have been nice to have a larger option for a 20-man league, but I guess they'll just be ultra competitive. The league option to skip or play buys. Now, I know this was available in draft, so maybe this is just new to league, but that's a welcome quality of life change, especially for those that don't want to have to worry about buys, that, and they just care about league. You can turn that off and then not have games during the buys. And then finally, and this is by far my favorite change when it comes to leagues, which is the tiebreaker has now been changed. Well, sorry, it hasn't been changed. There's now the option. So the old format, which you can still retain, was that it was based on percentage. So if you had a really good team that scored high, but you just happened to have like a whole bunch of points scored against you, instead of being rewarded for beating hard opposition, you'd actually be punished with a lower percentage. But this way, it's actually based on, you can swap it to being based on overall points. So if 2 teams are tied, then the tiebreaker is on overall points rather than percentage. I think that's a really nice change and should be the default for all your leagues. Next, on to SuperCoach Plus. So there's a bunch of features in here that SuperCoach Data or at SC Data had built out over the last year and had done a really good job doing so. So I think it's nice that they've taken inspiration from the work he's done, but it's also a bit sad to see that being made redundant. So yeah, the things here is being able to see the most popular VC option from each round. I wonder if the captain options will also come in. Oh, the captain options were already there, right? So you can now see both the VC and C, which is nice. You can see who people are loopholing for, who people are putting the captain on. And then most selected in starting lineups, as well as the bench, which I think is also really useful information, especially for those that are playing at the top end and trying to differentiate their team, whether that be in league or in overall. The traded in and out for upcoming round on every player's profile page. So yeah, this is the same thing, like being able to see not only the starting lineups for those other teams, but the trades in and out. So getting better information on what your competitors are doing in real time throughout the round. I think all 3 of those changes are nice to have them in the game. And then their other new addition is trade assist. So this suggests the best move for your team, which will be interesting to see how it works. I'll definitely see what results it tells me throughout the year. The way I understand this will work is it's going to look at all the most popular trade ins and outs that throughout the teams in SuperCoach, and then based on that and your team, it's going to suggest a trades based on those popular decisions in and out. So for those that are taking the game seriously, I don't think this has a big impact. It won't take into consideration things like buy structure or the structure of your team or things like that. I just don't think you could be smart enough to do all those things. But for those that are time poor and they pay for SuperCoach Gold or Plus or whatever it's called, I think this will be quite a nice feature for them. If they're time poor, they just play for fun with their friends. They've got a bit of spare money. They've signed up for this, and it can give you them those quick suggestions that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get access to. And then finally, I think for those that are into SuperCoach Draft, it's something they've been continuing to develop over the last couple of years, at least from memory. And I think they've made another step forward this year. So introducing mock drafts that you can do, I think probably with both bots and people would be my guess based on the limited that I've seen of it so far. And that's really nice. It's quite popular in other fantasy sports to be able to do these mock drafts ahead of time. They're definitely a big part of playing in draft leagues. Being able to do mocks ahead of time is super fun. So more custom options for the squad sizes in terms of like layouts, number of players, how many in each line, which is nice. Just good quality of life changes. And then continuing on with that, being able to set finals independent of the season length and also pre-draft ranking improvements. So yeah, nice quality of life changes there. I think for those that do play draft, that's great. I have played it the last few years. It's a really different format to overall, just because you've got to know so many more different players in different teams. So it's a nice challenge. I'm probably not going to do a ton of draft this year, but I'm definitely going to check out the mock drafts and see what the overall changes are. But yeah, that's my quick rundown of the changes to SuperCoach for 2022. I think the one thing to keep in mind for this is I've seen on a couple of sources, whether it was Pete or Al, that more changes could come as COVID evolves, which is, I feel two kind of ways about this. Like, part of what I thought they were doing here or trying to do with announcing these rules early was give people some certainty around the season and what was going to happen. So I hope things like more trades being added doesn't happen if COVID situations do, unless it's something like crazy that we can't predict. I would hope that the changes they make to COVID are probably limited to adjusting to like best 18 or whatever it may be, based on teams, a couple of teams missing for a week or something like that. That seems to be the fair option rather than adding more trades. But let's find out. Let's see what happens. So yeah, there could be some more changes to come and some things to firm up as they get closer to round one. But yeah, the bulk of these changes overall, I think are really nice. I think the ones that have been added in terms of trades, the mid-season DPP, and the boosts all add something different to the game, or help retain the integrity of it. And then a lot of the remaining changes are quality of life changes, which are nice. Will just make SuperCoach a little bit easier, a little bit friendlier to play. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, the rules that you or changes that you do or don't like. Interesting to hear what other people's opinions are. I know a lot aren't a fan of the trades or the boosts, but then there are a lot that are. So yeah, let me know below and I'll see you in the next one.